goes another 20-year-old.
Holy shit, I hate those guys.
Gotta hate 20-year-olds.
Fuck those guys.
Somebody help these 20-year-olds.
It's time to figure it out, Ricky.
Touch me.
Don't touch me. Don't fucking touch me. We're now on the podcast. We're under threat from our... Okay, we gave Kev the day off, and we have a producer filling in that's threatening us from the corner. So we'll see how this podcast goes. Just got to make sure it goes okay. But we're on Too Many Jams. It's a show about all things 20-year-old.
With help from friends, experts, and our own personal experiences, we hope to shed some light on those things that leave our age group lost and confused. And today on the show, we are joined by one of my good buddies, Paolo Campisi. I know
Very unique name.
Yeah,
May I just say that?
Super Italian.
When I saw that in the calendar invite, didn't know what to expect. Anyway, we can keep moving on. I just wanted to say that.
we'll get into talking about Paolo in 1 second. We have a couple things to go through at the beginning, and as you all listeners are aware, at the beginning of every show we crack a nice cold true history farmer in the sky. It's dry hopped Pilsner. They're taking over all the LCBOs. You can get them anywhere pretty much in the city. Go out, support local brewery.
I look forward to it each week because at the moment they're selling so much product that we don't actually have a lot of product on stock with the sponsorship. We only have enough for the episodes. So this is like my one time a week where I get a drink it sponsored. Every other time I got to put out my bucks for it. So I look forward to this every week.
Are these big bucks? Like, are these like $3.50 a can, or what are we looking at?
I think they're $2.90 or...
Yeah, I'm not
That's very
exactly
affordable.
sure
I like it.
how. Hence the sponsorship.
Hence the sponsorship.
We haven't bought.
Yeah.
That's true. Great point. Notice I look like a heathen. I just want all that CO2 out. I get gassy.
No,
now,
you're right.
Like,
What? And we'll touch on that later in the podcast.
Getting gassy.
But you're actually right. You're supposed to pour a beer with a big head.
Yeah.
It helps stop the burpees.
And if you haven't seen the video,
that producer is that okay? Is that allowed? Thumbs up. Okay. You gave a wink. Good.
Is wink okay, or is wink okay?
She's serving as the what is it called, like the censor for the episode, the socially conscious
Smart.
censor. She's already held up signs warning us.
Warning you specifically.
Well, me, yeah, but that's. No one can hear you on the mic, so right now I'm arguing with no one in the air. But yeah, she flipped me off. All right, cool. Anyway, so these are our friends' company.
Awesome.
High school friends, and we tried it before the sponsorship, and I was like, dude, this is unreal. You have a company, we have a bit of a platform. Honestly, would love to drink this weekly.
Yeah.
And they hooked us up, and we just threw a little competition last week, the True History Mystery, where we put out a code, and people had to decipher the code to figure out where stickers were downtown. And if you find the stickers, you won a case of True History and a bracelet and a spot on the pod.
Sweet.
Guess who won it?
Yeah, that's
Eric,
really good.
Tell me it's Eric Cohen.
No,
someone else you would know though.
We can play this game for a while. Can I get
you
hints?
probably won't get it.
Can I get
Okay.
like 3 hints?
Yes, someone you know
Okay,
has all their limbs. Male. And
His nickname is the Pearl.
yeah.
what?
The Pearl.
I have no idea who.
Alex Gerlings.
No, dude, I didn't know that was his nickname.
You know that?
That's awesome. Good for him.
Yeah,
That's sick.
It's so funny, and it happened so quickly too. It was maybe like the episode was released like Tuesday night, as we always do, and then was it like Wednesday during the day?
Yeah, I think so.
Gerling sends us a picture of him next to the pole with the Farmer in the Sky stickers.
Can we read the clue? Because honestly,
Yeah.
I was pretty proud of it.
I like having
a
a recap. This gives me a lot of context because I have no idea this happened.
So we put out like a code word in the episode, and in order to what you had to do is you had to follow True History and DM them the code word, and they would send you this clue back that we wrote, and then the clue was the location clue.
Yeah.
And it was, at the intersection of royalty and education, we honor history and the seasons with concrete and water. Look west and look north, across from a drug dealer and near a house that could be mistaken for soup. There are 2 North Poles. One holds your prize.
That's like a pretty good clue.
Yeah, and he figured it out. But once you break
Yeah.
it down, it's very easy.
Totally.
There's the Shoppers Drug Mart involved. It's probably
Boom.
on like a north corner.
Boom.
Obviously,
I think it was a Rexall, actually.
Rexall, but exactly.
Yeah.
That's where you want to.
But like the first clue at the beginning there,
like Royal York and what's the
Royalty and education.
and what's that? That's what I was stumbling with. I didn't want to do this live and look like an idiot. But
Well, think
whatever.
it's either that or it's university is education.
Wow,
College is
university.
education.
yeah.
There's so many
And
options.
King and queen are royalty, Royal York. So you piece it together. A house that could be mistaken for soup, Campbell House. It's right at that corner.
Mhm.
And there's a big war memorial that's got like water spouts and a concrete thing. And then the Four Seasons across the street. It's all in there.
Sick.
It's pretty easy, once you break it down.
Once you break it
Once
down.
you break it down.
It was, we tried to make it not that hard, but not that easy. You had to earn it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys broke it down for me and I didn't have to do it because that would have taken me a while.
Yeah, we don't want to leave you hanging.
Thanks, appreciate it.
So congratulations to Alex Gerlings on your you're the first true
Salute.
history winner.
Salute.
True history mystery winner.
That's a bit of a tongue twister.
It is a bit
Cheers
of a
to
tongue
Gerlings.
twister. Cheers to Gerlings, and we will be in contact with you about setting all this up in the next couple of weeks. So
That's awesome. And then another shout out to our other sponsor, Wrists and Rye, men's jewelry, handmade by yours truly. All the jewelry bits are made by my jeweler, obviously, but I put them together. And just good quality, warranty jewelry for men. And if you use JAMS15, you get 15% off. Hey, what's up? Now let's get to the podcast.
let's get into it. So I'll give a little intro on Paolo here.
Yeah, please.
Paolo is we've known each other for quite a long time through camp, as a couple of the guests on the show before, and Paolo is a Toronto native, and he originally had a background in advertising and marketing, right?
Yep.
We went to school together at Western for a couple years, and recently sort of connected again. I don't know. We bumped into each other a series of times.
Yeah,
recently,
for,
right?
For over burgers and then at events and stuff.
Yeah, and you started telling me all about Paolo just started his own company as well,
Tight.
which I'll let him explain once we get to that. And just through posting some of the clips from the show every week, Paolo's reached out to me like, I want to come on the show and chat and stuff. So here we are. Paolo, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm excited because I don't know much.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give a brief, boring history,
Cool.
and then you guys can ask some questions and add some color.
Perfect.
So I got super lucky, as you alluded to. I started in advertising, and I met a guy at homecoming at Western in about 2012, and he happened to be the CEO of a pretty big advertising agency, and we
Like an adult?
yeah,
Like coming back for homecoming? Yeah, I got you.
He was missing some hair, a little gray, but overall still a great drinker.
Cool.
Still crushing beers.
Still crushing beers with the guys. So yeah, it was cool. We were just chatting, and I had no idea who this guy was, what he did. And we covered a pretty broad range of topics, the things you're not supposed to talk about when you meet strangers, like religion, politics, sex, and talked about it all, which was cool. Like, you get to talk to an older guy who's, smart about like politics and business. And yeah, he's like, why don't you come work for me? And at the time I wanted to be a stockbroker.
Off a drunk convo?
Yeah, I got super lucky on that one. I think it was the alcohol talking. It was not articulate.
Was this through the fraternity? Was
Yeah.
he a DU?
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
That always helps too.
Yeah.
So yeah, should add there. It was a Delta Upsilon at Western. Robbie Sigma Chi. You also Sigma
Yeah,
Chi.
Sigma Chi.
But
Never
yeah,
got a job out of it though.
So we it was weird because I didn't connect with him for about 8 months afterwards. I decided to spend that summer in London working with a guy. But we kept in touch on Facebook.
This was after you graduated?
This was while I was still at Western.
While you're still at Western. Okay,
Still
so you
at
spent
Western.
a summer in London.
In London.
Yeah.
In London. So that was second year. Going into the summer of third year, I was like, I need a professional job. I still wanted to be a stockbroker, work at a bank, all that kind of jazz. So I hit him up. I was in Toronto for a mining conference. Don't ask, I won't get into it. And then, I show up to this advertising agency.
Wait. I don't want to gloss over that. Couple quick questions.
Yeah.
What were you doing at a mining conference? Was it like gold? Was it like
Yes.
diamonds? Or like,
So-
why were you there?
Yeah. So Canada has, we're a pretty boring country. A lot of people feel like,
Yeah.
but we have
Unless you're into minerals.
Yeah. So when it comes to investing, Canada has a high risk tolerance for like junior exploration companies looking for gold, diamonds, copper, things like that. And that's where a lot of capital markets people get together, investment bankers, private equity, like all those types of folks. Oh yeah, thanks, man. So yeah, those folks all get together, and I thought it would be a good place to either meet some of the people in investment banking on the buy and sell side, and then try to like weasel my way in.
So that's what you originally wanted to get into was
Yeah.
investment banking,
Yeah,
or some sort of
stockbroker, wealth management. I didn't
job.
really
Okay.
know.
And is that what you were in school for?
No, I knew going into Western that if I wanted to be a broker or get into the field, I would need some sort of business background, but it can be pretty loose. But
Yeah.
what matters is getting your Canadian security certificate and then going through those processes. And you don't really need a background. You have to pass exams. So that was my way of kind of hacking through it.
Sorry, you know what? It's so funny.
Just answer it. Put it on speaker.
Who was it?
It's my dad.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, every single time every time we sit down here, it could be any day of the week, anytime we start the podcast, and like clockwork, I get a phone call. Like sometimes I get 5 phone calls during this. I don't know. It's the most bizarre thing.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, I think we've been on a hot streak now, like every podcast for the last like 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
He's gotten a phone call, maybe for all of them, like minus like
every
once in a
every
blue
single
moon.
one. It's crazy.
Anyway,
They're good. It breaks up
yeah,
any tension.
it's like right when you're in the flow state
I
and
know.
everyone's focused on telling a story. There's nothing better than a nice crispy call.
Yeah. Well, look, I end up at this conference and I'm in a suit because I want to leave a good impression. But showing up to an internship interview for advertising in a suit, like looking nice and crisp, is not the move.
Yeah.
This guy ended up becoming a really good friend of mine. He hated me.
Sorry. So what? You called him up, and you're like, I want to take you up on that job.
I had scheduled like kind of ahead of time that I was going to be in Toronto. If we could meet, have an interview. I was interested in an internship.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
So yeah, I show up in a suit. I know really nothing about advertising. I was pretty prepared. Like I had an idea of his career history, what the agency was about, their values and things like that. But then just kind of showed up and had to wing it. I was, not prepared for, the type of questions they asked and everything like that. But, did well enough that I got the internship. And then kind of midway through my internship, I was offered a full-time position.
Wicked.
Yeah, so it worked out.
And this was directly out of school. You
Yeah.
had a job in advertising,
Yeah.
which you were. And what was the company?
It's called Red Lion. It no longer exists. It got driven into the ground. I won't go into that because then I'd just be talking mad business shit from someone who wouldn't see this podcast, but they're not worth my time.
Fair.
What was your role?
Yeah, so I started as an intern in strategy and then moved into account service. So client service is kind of exactly how it seems. You're responsible for, managing your clients' expectations, but also like high level, the budgeting, the creative process, not actually doing the work, but making sure the work's getting done and then essentially getting it into market. So you're kind of like a Sherpa. You're, carrying the team from point A to point B, making sure that, they're executing on a brief, which is, what sets up, either an out-of-home campaign or, some sort of advertising material. So you set that up and then you kind of shepherd the agency and the client through the process.
Was working in marketing anything like what you expected, like what you'd think you'd see on TV? A lot of I remember the marketing floor at one of the companies I used to work at was always a fun floor.
Yeah.
Like they always had ping pong tables and like booze. I'm like, what are they gonna do that?
Even
know what I mean?
recently at a sip bar event, it was a bunch of advertising
Yeah.
guys as well. and they were talking about how like classic advertising, like they party hard.
Well, back
Yeah,
in the day, it
those
used
guys.
to be like rock stars. Like advertising was like, you seen Mad Men, like they were like, you gotta sell the stuff, like make that money, like we're gonna do this cool stuff, and like if you
Yeah.
had a big hit, like you would like get famous
Yeah.
from advertising. But I bet that's what's worn into now, like a little bit of like that energy.
Well, accountants took over the industry, so it's not nearly as fun anymore. I'm looking
Damn
directly
accountants.
at any accountant who's worked at a major advertising network. They've ruined all the fun.
And how so?
Well, look, I think there's a lot of changes that have happened in advertising that are good. It's no longer like Mad Men. It's, it's a lot, I would say, more buttoned down, and it's a little leaner. Advertising has become a little more challenged as an industry because it's become less effective, I would
Yeah.
say, overall. So all of the big names, I was really fortunate to work at J. Walter Thompson, but that agency in Toronto it's now Wunderman Thompson.
Yeah.
But I would say over the last 4 years, they lost over half their revenue, had to fire more than half their staff.
And this is because of the progression of just like I guess people not watching as much TV and like
Social media, all that.
social media and all this stuff, right?
Yeah, that definitely plays a part. I think there's also misalignments between what management thinks an agency's for versus what clients think it's for. And when you have two competing ideas of what you're trying to achieve,
Let's keep that centered.
yeah, sorry, when you have a misalignment there between a client and an agency, it's never going to end up well. But there's a ton of reasons why advertising's in decline. It's unfair to just pick on one agency, but we've seen it, across, big names like DDB or, BBDO. These agencies, were set up to do TV and print media. But now to the point you guys are just making, most people consume on Facebook, Instagram. We consume culture differently, and a lot of agencies haven't been able to, keep up with the rapid changes.
It just also seems that since we've grown up with advertisements, second generation, like our parents had some radio advertisements, then the TV came out, and that was really powerful. And then our parents grew up with TV advertisements for a full lifetime. And then when we came around, I think parents were very good at being like, yo, this is all bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're an entire generation of skeptical people
Yeah.
that need a different type of advertising. Because like you see an ad now, what do? Fuck off. You go fuck off.
Yeah.
Totally. It's too much of it, right? They're trying to like hit you at every angle. So it's like you got ad blockers, YouTube. It's like, I gotta wait for this, like and you don't even really pay attention to it.
No.
There's a lot of, I think our expectations as younger consumers have changed. I think I'll use the word propositions, basically like what makes up, the entire product experience, the way you buy it, how it is presented to you, and then actually how that product works. Is more important to us than, I would say, brand stories. I think a lot of people still believe in marketing that, you tell a story around a brand and people will buy it. And to your point, everyone kind of looks at it and calls it bullshit. Look at mattresses, for example. The sales in the mattress category were flat for years. Casper rolls around and everyone thinks it's because it's digital. Well, that, they actually changed the proposition. The growth in the mattress category came from a few different players, Casper, and there's now a bunch of Me Too products.
Can you explain to me quickly the appeal of Casper?
Yeah,
and
we
Endy?
talked about this actually on previous
Okay.
episodes because Rob bought a mattress in a box from Walmart.
Oh,
Yeah. No, actually, well, it was from
Wayfair.
From Wayfair.
Wayfair.
Yeah.
Walmart was first. You returned that one?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Wayfair. And he paid maybe about a third of the price of the Casper mattress.
right.
And so we were kind of waiting to see how it would turn out. And he's like, I love this mattress.
Right.
He's like, it's amazing. And we were looking into Casper mattresses because they were so expensive, trying to find out what their value was.
Right.
Same material, same everything,
Yeah.
comes in a box. It was purely just marketing.
And the general consensus between us, before we even researched what Casper and Endy were all about, was, these are kind of the new age mattresses. They come in a box, like they're cheaper, they're targeted towards millennials,
But they had no value other than they were good at marketing.
But they were just as expensive.
They're more.
Yeah. So if you look at, so Serta Simmons was a client of mine while I was at an agency called.
And that's a mattress company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've toured their factory. They're made in Canada. I've seen their foam mattresses, and the foam mattress isn't anything new. Like, we used to sleep on those at camp all the time. You know how malleable they are. They fold into any which way. So what you guys just nailed it. It wasn't the actual product itself. It was how you research, you buy the product that changed it for people. You know, if you look at where Casper's strategy is going today, it's more about, you know, how do we look at their comment section? Everyone's like, oh, have you tried this? Tell me more about it. You know, like, people are curious to feel it, to touch it, to know if it's actually comfortable. So they actually have to open up retail stores and look at how do we get, you know, physical product in front of people, because it's still a pain in the ass to buy something, have it shipped to you, open it, try it, and then send it back. Once that mattress unfolds, it's really difficult to get back in that box, right?
Yeah.
So
you return one.
Yeah, you would know, right? But but to your point, it's all about that experience around the product, not necessarily the product itself. What they did was they simplified buying the product and getting it to you. No longer is it something that takes
I had to rent a van
Yeah.
to deliver my mattress.
Really, eh?
Yeah, because it's not a fold-up foam mattress.
They don't deliver it to you like Sleep
Oh,
Country
you could
does.
pay. Yeah, you could pay. You could.
Oh, you have to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll have a promotion for free delivery.
Yeah.
But no, I had to pay, and then it was cheaper to rent a van.
So think of how ridiculous it is that, you know, you have to, when we buy anything like cannabis, whatever the things we're going to talk about today, but most products, you research it online, you buy it online, it shows up at your house, and if you need to deliver it, you bring it back to the post office through some sort of, you know, stamp that you get from the company and send it back for free, right? The entire model of having to go to a store and then someone is going to stand in your way of the purchase. You have a sales associate that's going to try to push you to one product or another based on promotion or commission or something like that. You have to try them out, and then you have to wait a week or longer for a delivery guy to come. You got to pay $100 for delivery. Then they got to, you know, like, there's so many barriers and so much friction between you and actually making that purchase.
Yeah.
That's no wonder that, you know, organically this company with slick marketing, a really clean brand, and a really simple way to buy their product was successful. So
Interesting. And was Casper and Andy like born at the same time, or, you know, similar?
I think Endy came after and was almost a Me Too product. I think they just got acquired by like Sleep Country or something like that.
That makes sense.
But Casper, you know, Casper has done really well. There's an agency that helped them really early on, very well respected, called Red Antler. But you know, when that brand was built, it wasn't just about a slick logo. It was what's the modern infrastructure, like the pipes that are going to make, you know, marketing to you, you know, relevant on Instagram. You know, how are you going to convert those people on Instagram to buy on a website? So it's a really thoughtful process of the entire experience, not just brand. It's, you know, it's balancing up like path to purchase and, you know, other factors.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's just as much advertising going on, and we're just as influenced. We're just like, you can't fool two generations with the same type of advertising. So now our generation, we're the ones that are getting influenced by this new type of marketing that makes us think this has value. And, you know, when we see stuff with our YouTube influencers telling us what to do, or our Instagram ads, we're just as influenced. The money is still made.
Right.
There's no short, it's not like the economy cut in half, just that one advertising company's revenue cut in half. You know what I mean? So there is still a form of influence in advertising working somewhere. And then it'll take our generation to realize, figure that one out, and then there'll be a different form, the next level form.
We're shifting dollars around, right? I think at the end of the day, there used to be this 80-20 rule where 20% would be, you know, spent on, you know, idea generation. What's the idea? Production. And then the rest was spent on media. What I mean by media is like TV ads, you know, like the actual getting the message out to people. But what we're starting to see more is, you know, our generation, and even, you know, we've influenced our parents and the people younger than us. We need more content. We need to better understand, you know, what we're buying. You know, you see the rise of unboxing videos. You see the rise of, you know, influencers. Those dollars aren't necessarily, going away. Companies are still spending them, but they're spending it differently. They're not spending it through traditional channels. And that's why the big networks, WPP, Omnicom, Publicis, have had some problems, because as opposed to that money going through to buy, media space on Rogers, it's going to Robbie Davidson because Robbie has an audience of X on Instagram.
Or the kid who makes $20 million a year opening up YouTube boxes. He's 8 years old. Opening up boxes on YouTube toys.
Yeah, the unboxing.
It's fucked up.
The top earner on YouTube is a little boy that opens up presents.
Do companies put money towards that, unboxing channels and like?
Yeah, that would be a part of like an influencer.
That's insane.
Yeah, because they would pay him. He would make, and I think that might be 20 million. I don't know if that's just off views, but like, or if it comes from.
I know there's a
as well.
kid that you're talking about. I don't know the numbers, so I can't.
I heard it on a
comment.
podcast the other day.
And that's just money he makes, not to not even talking about all the free stuff that he probably gets from just unboxing those. So he gets sent all this stuff and he makes money on top of that.
Because they'll say, "Hey, open our gift, but we also will pay you $10,000 to open it because you have X numbers of millions of followers."
Imagine getting a gift like that, money and a present.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? Could you open up our new PC on camera and we'll give you 20 grand? It's like, I had a busy morning, but all right, yeah, I'll fit that in.
Normally I charge about 40 or 50 grand, but.
But yeah, I get what you're saying, and but the thing is, it's all advertising, but it just seems that we just need more and more real stuff. Like I'll still be influenced. It used to be a commercial, sure, but now I want to see someone's face that has a platform to lose. Tell me something's worthwhile. You know what I mean? Because if I said this beer is good and you drank it and it's not good, you go, "Hey, Travis, I know who you are. You're a real person. What the fuck?" You know what I mean? Not just an empty commercial where an actor's like, "I love Preparation H from a butthole." You know what I mean? And you're like, "Oh, thanks, actor." Well, you know what I mean?
It's interesting, right? I think influencers solve a few problems for big companies, right? They're less expensive because a celebrity comes with a lot of baggage. They have their lawyers, they have their reps, they have, agents that need to get paid. So
and plus their own reputation.
Yeah. So, it's expensive, right? But then, we look at this podcast, for example, like it's all your equipment. You guys are spending time out of your day to do it. You guys are doing all of the work. You guys are representing yourself, doing the contract negotiations and things like that. So you guys are actually capturing some of that money that would go to other people versus, a celebrity that's kind of got to divvy it up. But that's what makes, I think, influencers different and maybe less safe for brands as, George Clooney, for example, because, any celebrity can have a meltdown. They can say something racist, we've seen this happen. Mel Gibson's a great example. But there's a huge difference between a guy like him and PewDiePie, who
big YouTuber,
yeah. So guy making millions of dollars a year, drops some. I think he's dropped like racist and homophobic slurs, and lost out on a lot of money. And when we see everything around esports,
PewDiePie?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I looked into it.
He's still making some bank now.
No, he had a contract, and they pulled out because of someone wrote an article shaming him for something he did. And so they pulled out of the contract, but because he had a contract, he still got paid.
Yeah.
And then when you look back at what the article referenced, they took, he did a skit where he was like making fun of people, and he had a Nazi, whatever,
just something like
garb
not
on.
cool.
Not cool, but not being actually anti-Semitic, more being like, this is like Nazi Germany, like this, like making a joke, like this is awful, like you're being a Nazi or something like that. And they screen grabbed him in that that outfit.
Oh shit!
And then made an article saying he was anti-Semitic.
Right.
And then that lost him this deal, but he ended up still getting paid. And it's just crazy that just one article like that and a bad screen grab on a guy like that.
Yeah.
And if he sells your product, now your product is anti-Semitic. You know what I mean?
I read a similar article about, and you probably saw this too, about Logan and Jake Paul. About after, I mean, you know what happened with that one video, right? Where
in Japan,
they've
had a lot of issues.
Well, that one in particular, lost them. I forget what it was. Like their general engagement has dropped. Like they dropped like maybe like 200 to 300 million views or subscribers per month or something.
Oh, okay.
Like something
Probably
like
probably
extreme.
views.
Yeah, probably views. Yeah, it's something extremely substantial, and just completely washed out their viewership because of that one video for both brothers too. Like even the one who didn't post the video has talked about how it's
really?
affected him. Yeah.
But they bounce back though.
These guys
Yeah.
also, some of them, if you watch, I think it was Logan Paul or Jake Paul. I can't distinguish them. I'm sorry. But one of them did an interview on Bloomberg, and I was watching it, and it was a complete train wreck. But I'm sitting there as a business guy looking at it and saying, I would never represent my business or what I do like this.
Yeah.
Whereas I think some people in his audience would look at that and be like, fuck, that's our boy. That's our boy, like having fun on Bloomberg and taking a piss out of it. So, some of it, I think.
What was the context of the interview?
They were just talking about, how it was after the issue. I know he had, he pissed off the LGBTQ community and, the mental health community with the suicide video in Japan. So this is after both those incidents. It was sometime,
Two pretty big
like
communities these days.
yeah, you don't
too.
want to, well, it just like from one person to another, like you don't want to degrade people or, do anything that's going to offend like your friends, your family. So, he did that, but I look back and say, if you're going to go on Bloomberg, which is a pretty serious platform, a lot of really smart people watch it, and you're going to take a laugh out of the platform, people that invest in esports or emerging media and emerging tech are going to look at this and say, why the fuck am I investing in this clown?
Yeah.
So versus, oh, this guy's playing to his audience. Like most of us just take things off first glance, right? We read books by the cover all the time. So when you look at a guy like him, you're like, who's this clown? He might be a really smart business guy. He might make really savvy investments. We don't know because we're only seeing like one angle of his public persona. So, I mean, you kind of have to take the good with the bad. But yeah, the marketing world has changed, and that's what's really led me to focus on what I'm doing with Elemental versus going down this like traditional path of the only solution I have for your business is a TV ad, a print campaign, or a radio spot.
Oh yeah, so that's a good way to wrap it up because it is complex. So you were in advertising. You obviously saw some turmoil there. You learned a lot, I'm guessing, and you had a great time and you had some good mentors. But how did it kind of wind up, and then how did you get into what you're doing now?
Yeah, I don't want to be one of those people that shit talk advertising or anyone specifically in it today because I think it is still a part of the ecosystem of how we consume. I just don't think it's the same blunt instrument as you kind of alluded to earlier that we've all experienced. When you see the same TV spot over and over again. For me, I was always, through my own career, I always wanted to have a bigger influence. And I thought that influence meant, writing TV spots or print ads so I could make sure that it would have a bigger impact for a client, or then, joining a startup agency to do X, Y, and Z. But what I really realized, after, 5 years was that most of the time our clients are unsuccessful because of the underlying product. When you look at some of the things that are being sold on TV or just more broadly, right? You have products that don't align to our values. When we look at, cosmetics that are tested on animals, products that have, things that are carcinogens in them, food products that use palm oil, which is devastating the rainforest. We all look at it and say, there's a reason why certain traditional products are declining in sales, and they're just completely out of line with the things we value and the way we consume. So I wanted to focus more on products and product propositions, and then show clients how we can take them to market in a different way that adds more value than just coming up with, one solution that costs $250,000.
Yeah, instead of saying, okay, you got a shit product, but I'll take your $250,000 and I'll get you all these spots.
Yeah.
And I know how to do all that, but you know deep down inside that it's really about them. Mm-hmm. So this new business you're in is tackling that.
Yeah. So, we're a boutique consulting agency. And
just for anyone who's listening, what's the name of it?
It's called Elemental.
Yes.
Yeah, the website is thisiselemental.co. Check it out. Yeah, so most clients, and it's not about them having a shit product necessarily. It's sometimes, we have a product, it's sold well, but where do we want to go to next, and how do we get there? And some clients want to move really quickly, some need to move a little more slowly. But for us, when I looked at launching my own business, knowing that I was going to compete against my former employers at Deloitte, knowing that, KPMG and Accenture, have their own innovation practices, how do we look at this differently was my biggest challenge.
So those consulting companies do have a division that says, okay, like we like exactly what you just said, like we want to look at how you align with the market on the product side first before we advertise.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and there's different functions. Some are far more strategic and high level, where others are more practical and they'll prototype and build. But if you look at the industry, there's been a bit of a consolidation between the big four consulting firms making acquisitions, like Market Gravity, or you see this is an advertising agency that got pulled in, but you look at Droga being acquired by, I believe it was was it Accenture? It doesn't matter who acquired
Yeah, our
them.
listeners would have no
Yeah,
idea. You
it
could
does-
say
it-
words.
yeah.
It was Droga acquired
Yeah.
by Beluga.
Doesn't matter. But yeah, that's the trend now is the trend now is, how do you bring these things in house? Because, the jury is, still out. They're trying to figure it out. But what we're seeing is this type of work, this type of consulting practice is having an outsized return for clients, depending on how it's executed. When they're looking at it from going, hey, what's this idea, to how does it get in market, you could have a really profound impact on a client's business. And that's what I'm more excited on. I'm tired of, I had this really wonderful opportunity to launch hotels.com in Canada. And I knew fundamentally that the amount of money we were spending and how we were going to spend it. And this is when I was like,
This is with Elemental?
this is when I was at J. Walter Thompson.
Okay, yeah, okay.
There was something inside of me where I knew we weren't going to actually land for our client. And when you look at a digital business that most people spend, when you guys book travel, you're doing it all online, and, you're checking multiple sites. And our solution as an agency was, TV, radio, and out of home. I'm sitting there like, we're so fucking out of touch with our customer.
And when they approached you guys, what was their pitch to you guys? Like, what did they want?
Well, yeah, we had to pitch them, but they were looking to relaunch hotels.com in Canada, and they had a media partner that was going to book them TV and sponsorships and all this traditional stuff. And, hotels.com is a great product. It's got a great loyalty program. It's pretty easy to use. The inventory is the same across other Expedia properties, but I was sitting there, I got to fly to Spain and do amazing stuff with this business, but in the back of my head, I'm like, if 4 TV spots going to move the needle and help these guys sell more, the idea that, all of us consume travel content digitally, and that's where our path to purchase is. It doesn't make sense to try to create brand recall or loyalty or sentiment, on TV. So that was one of the things I struggled with. And it was an example that I think is important to me. I have dozens of these, over the course of my career. But that was one where, the stakes were pretty high based on, how much money we were spending.
And did hotels.com end up going with that traditional pitch that you, that traditional method that you just mentioned?
Well, because probably everyone was saying the same thing.
They were.
Which is probably why you have a business now. Like, I'm assuming the reason you have a business now when these companies you just named still exist is because whatever it is, there's a little bit of a misalignment where they have a management structure of people that aren't quite in touch with the ground level. But in this day and age, you can start a ground level consulting company if you just know more than that person. You don't need the whole back office that they have. And so with Elemental, how long have you been running it?
Yeah, so I left Deloitte at the end of January. So Feb 1st was my first day.
And you left with the intention of starting a business. You're like, I'm leaving, I'm starting a business.
Yeah.
And then just you, partners?
Yeah, so started it myself, and our model, again, trying to find ways to be competitive with, larger firms was really around, okay, how do I leverage, Toronto especially, and Canada has, great production resources, great creative talent, and a lot of them are freelance. So as opposed to looking at it and saying, I have a 200-person staff, that costs tens of millions of dollars just to keep around.
Yeah, overhead. Yeah.
Overhead. How do I run a consultancy? And for me, I've built up this network in my professional life, but there's other, HR consultancies that have rosters of freelance talent with 10, 15, 20 years of experience. So I sit there saying, as opposed to, a Deloitte analyst that's, straight out of school, could be really smart. If you're going to pay, $200, $150 an hour for them, why don't I find someone with 10 years of experience? I will probably end up charging $150, $200, $300 for their time. But, that person is actually going to deliver quality work, has the experience in the category, and it's not someone just sitting on a bench waiting for it.
No, I totally understand the idea. I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised consulting hasn't got there yet, or even advertising. Because if you really thought about it, if you and I wanted to advertise right now and we're like, hey, we want a guy who does great Facebook placements. I could go on Upwork. I could go on one of these freelance sites and find that guy. If you have a network of or that girl, if you have a network of all of these people that have, you're bringing the business, they have allegiances to you, you've vetted them, tested them, and you can save all the overhead of when you don't have work. And I really like the concept, but how do you go about landing that first client? How do you, what did you do to get that first dollar?
Man, it took a while.
I can imagine.
I'd run business development at a startup agency, had been a part of it at Publicis and J. Walter Thompson. So, for me, there was always RFPs. There was always stuff in the funnel. Whether you won it or not was another story. But then I had to start sourcing it myself. And a lot of it came from leveraging.
What's RFP?
A request for proposal. So there's different terms you can use: request for proposal, request for information.
This is from people that would potentially hire you,
clients,
and you sent it out. Okay.
Yeah, so they'll ask for qualifications or just general kind of information, and they'll take you through this process. But for me, it really, I started hitting up my professional network of former clients, asking for their advice. They gave me amazing advice of how to talk about our business and what we're trying to do. But then also they threw me a bone. They would throw me, an RFP, have the ability to pitch on it, or say, hey, let me introduce you to someone, either a small, medium-sized business, something like that.
Speaking of that, I just want to mention, so was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago that you were supposed to come on the show?
I think 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, Paolo was supposed to come on the show. And I think last minute you probably got an RFP, right?
Yeah. So I can't say which client it is because we're still talking. But yeah,
I wanted to ask how that went.
It went really well. So I had a meeting at their head office with two of their senior brand managers who are working on their 2020 strategy, and they're in a heavily regulated industry. They have a lot. Kind of riding on, growing their business. And they said, okay, here's what we're trying to do. Go through, with that in mind, go through your business, your experience, and explain how we can work together. And then they asked a bunch of different questions. And some of them I felt like were traps. They were asking me, some of the top points we're talking about, like how much do you allocate to digital? And, when you're in a meeting, a lot of people just want to, say what the answer is or what they think the best answer is. And quite honestly, I don't know. And there's a lot of confidence in saying to someone when you're pitching them that you don't know, because I sit back and say, what is our process? How do we actually find out what that solution is for a client? And, I kind of walked through some of their questions and gave them how I would answer that, that question if we were actually going to move forward. And I think they respected that. And we're going to move forward. We're setting up a meeting either this week or next to talk next steps and what that looks like.
So just basically to get your first client, you just refined, you use your networks and you really leaned on them as people should when they're starting a business. And you just took each RFP as a learning. You figured out why they didn't choose you.
So I actually avoided a lot of RFPs. So I would say that the majority of my pipeline came from referrals because RFPs are pretty labor intensive. Some of them could be 10, 20, 30, 40 pages of like a questionnaire
before they've even hired you.
So I spent a lot of time going out for coffees, beers, dinners, meeting potential clients, kind of working my network and going from there. My first client was a small healthcare holding company that I met through an investor for a different business that I'm working on. So
And can you talk about the projects that you did with them a little bit?
Yes. So yeah, they were looking to raise money through capital markets, a private placement, and they had this company that it owns real estate assets. They're in the mental health and addiction space, treating in the United States. But if you looked at this business on paper, you didn't get that it would be something that you wanted to invest your money in. It wasn't, it didn't look like a healthcare company. It was dated. It was using, like a design that you would, look from like the early 90s, right? So our first task was aligning what that business should look like for, the expectations of the audience being investors, so that they'd be confident that, this is a modern company. It looks like it belongs in the space. And then second was to help them. They had a lot of content around what their offering was, what they were looking to do. So we took that content and refined it a bit, but mostly like laid it out in a simple presentation that, people could say, okay, what's the ask? You're asking for $2 million. And then set up the story of why you're going to give this company $2 million and how it's going to be used for. So it was, a 4 to 5 week engagement where we did like a full rebrand and then built that content for them.
And is that a pretty standard time length engagement between companies or clients, or does it really depend on what the sort of they're asking for? And
yeah, no, it completely depends on what they're asking for, and it also depends on how you staff it. I have some clients that can't afford $40,000 to spend in 1 month, but they can afford $10,000 over 4 months just based on their cash flows. So we have to find, and that's if we're working with small businesses. When we start scaling up and work into enterprise, I could have a team of 4 people, myself included, working dedicated, 5 days a week for 6 to 8 weeks and accomplish quite a bit of work. When I was at Deloitte for, I would say Alberta Cannabis, for example, I was kind of bouncing in here and there, but they had a team of 3 people dedicated. The head of design was jumping in as well. But we worked out of the AGLC offices for, 4 or 5 weeks and just, got it done. Working hand in hand with the client. They were able to come into the office because we were working out of their office.
We'll come into my office.
Yeah.
It's in your office. So that works out.
Yeah. And then from there, people would come in and you get that feedback immediately. What do you think of this? How are we challenging this problem? And then, that instant feedback, and then being able to, bring senior leadership in and show them the progress every week, I think was, that led to some of the success. And I made sure I wanted to take what I learned from doing projects at Deloitte like that and bring that to what we're doing at Elemental.
So I really like it. Again, you're eliminating the overhead of even having an office, because when a project comes around, you use they're saving money. They have an office for you. They have one. Every company that owns an office building has an office for you to work out of. And they're saving that money. They're getting more utilization out of their space. They're getting a more effective connection with the person doing the marketing for them, and they're saving the dollars they'd have to pay you to float your overhead, to float your staff. It's a really cool idea. And I just want to, so it's obvious that you gained your experience through work in advertising, working in at Deloitte and consulting and all that, and you figured out what you liked, what worked, what didn't work, and you went beyond that. But still, even saying all that and having a great idea like you laid out, it's still almost impossible for the average person to comprehend starting that company. And you said this before the interview, and you just said it there, that how much you leaned on networking. Have you always been good at networking? Because a lot of people aren't. It's something I struggle with.
Yeah.
But has that always been in your tool belt?
No, it's something that I've had to develop over time. And I mean, I've changed so much. I look at, from when Robbie and I were at Western, I was probably, like 18, 19, 20 years old, to where I'm now. I'm turning 30 next week. So I'm glad I got onto the podcast.
Wow.
Got into the podcast just under the limit there.
I was going to make a comment. I saw the Facebook and
no, I hope you boys come out. It'll be a good time. But, it was something you have to work on, right? As I was younger, I was notorious for, jumping in and trying to have the answer and just, using, diction and syntax to make me look smart as opposed to, keeping it simple, right? It's a challenge.
You are a well-spoken person.
That's really kind of you to say. It's very kind. Thank you. But yeah, like I look at myself and my experience, and I think I am a product of, the success of my parents sending me to a summer camp that afforded me that, even though I paid my fraternity dues myself, that, they helped me through school. So I was able to do that and experience that. My success is my parents' success, right? My parents sacrificed so much for myself, my sisters to have these experiences because they knew, yeah, we can have the smartest kids in the world, but we have to help them get advantages, and that those advantages are going to come from meeting people and having experiences. When we look at the alumni that kind of come out of our era of Kilku, like on either end, you have some guys younger than us that are super successful doing some things, and you have other guys that are super successful, like either in finance or entrepreneurship, whatever those things are, and we're a network of guys, like being a part of that, having that shared experience. Same thing for the fraternity, right? Being a Kilku alumni, being a Delta Upsilon, being a Sigma Chi, those comes with privileges, and you gotta understand that. You have to recognize that. And, I try to open doors, if someone is looking for mentorship, career advice, look at their resume, whatever, you got to give back. But I think it's something you have to work on. It just doesn't come naturally. You could be, a social dud and then, in 4 years through university, become a rock star, but that's all experience. It's all repetition. Right. And, it just doesn't come naturally for anyone. And you just got to recognize how those different pieces all came together for you.
Well, the thing is the reason I struggle with networking, the reason I ask about it is because I still don't understand it. And I'm fortunate, like you said, to have a lot of those things you said, and it's built a good network. Right. So I know a lot of people, and that's afforded me the ability to know some people pretty close that have gotten into things that can help us out. But beyond that, or people on the fringe of maybe my close network, I have a really hard time networking because I feel like I don't even understand what I need from them, what to ask, and then I have so many relationships that I have a hard time figuring out. Okay, then is this even genuine? Holding a relationship with them if I just want something, or right. And I struggle with all these things, but I know it's not the case because I know good networkers, they kind of maneuver it fine. They don't. No one feels like they're pestering them or keeping friendships or points of contact for just their own personal gain. It's usually always a two-way street. But I never see the angle that they hit it from. I never feel comfortable doing it. And where did you start? Was it one day where you're like, okay, I'm just going to try to make a list of the people I know and that I need advice from and ask them, or like, what was, you know what I mean? Like, what was step one? Did you have an intention, or did it just kind of develop?
Look, I think day one was Kilku Camp, where, David Latimer sits up there and he goes, look, when you meet someone's parents and you're on your bunk, you stand up, you take off your sunglasses, you look them straight in the eye, you reach out your hand and you shake their hand and say, hi, I'm so-and-so, nice to meet you. Robbie and I grew up in an environment where being, I wouldn't say masculine, but I would say almost like gentleman, or like this, like how to strive to be like a respectable person was something that was in there. And that I think was the basis for me. And then it was all trial and error. I'll give you an example. So, being in the fraternity, all the guys are close, shared values. You'll pretty much do anything for these guys. And I got reached out to by a brother who just sent me a copy and pasted, message on Facebook, misspelled my name, and was like, hey man, I'm selling like real estate, like would love to like chat with you about this opportunity, right. Shit like that. Like that's the wrong way to go about it.
100%.
And, like 100%, right? It's like, dude, I've known you for, over 5 years. Like you used to sleep on my couch in the house.
Oh, this wasn't just like through like sort of a fraternity network.
No. This was like
a bud.
Yeah, this is like a guy I knew.
Yeah.
So that was disappointing, But I look at, all the other guys and, the way they approach it, a lot of them just ask questions. They say, hey, Paolo, I know you're really well connected in the fraternity. I'm nervous to reach out to so-and-so. Can you give me some tips on what I should ask? Like, here's what I'm thinking. And I always challenge, like, if someone comes to me for advice, it's like, what is it you want out of this situation, or how can I help you? There was this guy at Deloitte, and I loved the way he would handle like the end of meetings, or like some of these like sales pitches with clients. Like, what do you need from us? And that's something, you ask a client, but you also got to ask like the people around you, like, how can I help you, or what do you need? And just coming from it that, you don't know the answer, don't assume anything. It's how you take that concept of don't assume anything and put it into practice that, I still struggle with daily, right? But it's something that if I remember, kind of helps me through. It's, asking your network or the people you respect around you, how you can, succeed like them, or what are the things that you can do to, get that experience.
So you were looking at people that have achieved either the exact thing or something similar to what you want, and said, then you ask them advice. So like for us, it would be an example of looking through our connections and finding the people that say it's tougher for us. Again, we don't know many rock star podcasters, but it'd be an example of maybe finding someone that had a successful podcast. And my question is, how loose of a connection were you comfortable going after? How like far reaching did you ever see someone like, oh, I really think that's a person, but the only connection we have is that he went to DU like 20 years back or whatever. Yeah. And would you still craft a way to reach out to that person, or would you build a bridge to them?
I think I have 3 examples.
Okay.
2 very recent, and then I might forget the third. So one of you remind me if we trail off. So Rich Greenfield, he's an analyst, new media technology, very big on Twitter. I follow him. I like all his content. I comment on it. I think he's brilliant, and so are the team around him. He's starting his new venture. Before I knew this, I was just a really big fan, and I happened to be going to New York for 4 or 5 days. And I sent him a note, and I said on Twitter, I'm like, hey, Rich, I'm going to be in New York like these days. If you're in town, I'd love to grab a coffee and pick your brain. Here are some of the things I want to talk about.
And you had no prior communication or introduction?
Other than social media, I think we followed each other. He would post some stuff. I would comment on it. I would sometimes write an article of why I think he was right or why he he was wrong. I would tag him in it.
Yeah, so you did some pre-work that showed you were a person of value that cared about what he did and that was in the industry
with no intention of ever meeting this guy. It was just something
genuine.
I was doing and then
and like, is this guy pretty well known across North America?
Yeah, he's on CNBC like pretty
wow.
pretty regularly. I actually have a few more examples.
So anyways, continue with this one. So you sent him a note, you're coming to New York.
Yeah. And he's like, great. We then exchanged emails so I can get it in his calendar. Like, again, know your audience, right? Like you're talking to someone at an investment bank, they live and die by Outlook, like get something in their calendars.
Yeah.
And, obviously I'm asking for his time. So, I'm making sure I'm there, 15 minutes early, making sure I ask him ahead of time, hey, can I grab you a coffee? Oh no, you want a tea? What kind of tea do you want? Like, you know what I mean? Just trying to, kind of, and then we sat down for, I think 45 minutes, an hour, and just talked about, new media. He had some really interesting questions, wanted my perspective as, an ex-ad guy, as a consultant, where I thought things were going. And, we just talked as, 2 guys. Like, I felt like I knew him personally from that. And,
I really like that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because all you did was just genuinely interact with him. Like, and he's someone that's probably more out of reach than most people because of his platform. And you just genuinely appreciated his advice, wrote some thoughtful stuff. He's a real person just like anyone else. And he sees that you're a real person through your interaction. And he's just like, yeah, I'm down to chat.
Yeah.
And we've had a guy on the show previously, Blake Flyshacker, who this is his, sort of what he's all about, and what he preaches and what he talks about is simple sort of kind thank yous and introductions.
His whole thing is, if you're thinking about someone, message them.
Yeah.
And he just says that generally goes a long way. And, you know, you just literally like last week, you'll just get a message from him and he's just like, hey, we did a podcast this time next year. Thinking of you.
Yeah.
What's new in your world this week? What's big? And like, that's a guy that we haven't talked in almost a year. And if he asked for something tomorrow, I'd give it to him just because, you know what I mean? Like, he's just a good dude.
Yeah.
Same deal on a larger scale when he has a platform. Maybe you had to go a little bit above and beyond. Again, not intentionally,
Right.
but you're an active person engaging in what you're interested in.
Right.
You showed him that you had value, not on purpose.
Yeah.
But same thing, if we wanted help from somebody with a little bit of a platform, it's about that person's got to see that you're worth their time, because the people are willing to help, I think.
And I think this is something that we're actually kind of struggling with over the last little while, or maybe not struggling, but, you know, just thinking about, you know, how we can sort of take our podcast to the next level, because we want to go after maybe some higher profile people that will bring a bit of an audience, you know, to continue the growth of our podcast overall, right? So
look, I think there's two things there. I have a personal example from myself, kind of putting myself out there, and then one where someone else did. I'm not going to use his name because people will light him up on LinkedIn.
Bill Gates.
Yeah. But you know, I was at this conference, and a VP of a very large multinational company is giving this, you know, kind of intimate talk. It's a group of like 15 people, 20 people, and he just casually drops this line where he's like, "Look, I host, you know, unstructured talks." And, you know, I get on the phone with, you know, people outside my industry, people in it, you know, different verticals, just to, you know, talk, learn about their experience and, you know, that kind of jazz. So after that, you know, that like intimate, you know, kind of working session, I walked up, I introduced myself and said, you know, hey man, like I would love the opportunity to, you know, chat with you, and, you know, if that's okay, like I'll send you an email. So he gives me his assistant's email. We start corresponding, and we've had 2 or 3 of these chats, and, you know, we'll talk on a Thursday and I'll follow up with something that, oh, Scott said this, I saw an article, like here's so-and-so. And then, you know, I send that to him. And then on Saturday morning, that guy must be reading it, because I'm getting, you know, a response from him saying, hey, I really appreciated that. That was great. Thanks for sharing. You know, that was something I took from someone offering that, but I've had the opportunity 2 times to go to the Rotman Marketing Association. They did like an agency after dark thing, and it's all these undergrad students talking about, well, we're talking to them about, you know, careers in advertising or consulting, how they can get into it, tips and tricks, things like that. And I always tell every group, I said, listen, you can find me on Twitter pretty easily. You can find me on LinkedIn, reach out, and, you know, if you're looking to have a coffee, a beer, whatever, let me know and we'll chat. Like, I got that mentorship from very senior people in advertising. The least I can do is offer that to like the kids who want to join this industry and contribute. And, you know, most times I'm only getting 2 or 3 kids that are coming up and saying, hey, you know, can we have a coffee? Can we, you know, go out on life? And, you know, and the nicest thing is, this is just a pro tip for the youth out there. Don't offer to buy me a coffee or a beer. Like, I'm an adult now working. Like, I know what it's like to be a starving student. I will buy you a coffee or a beer or a whole meal. It's fine. It's really generous, and I love it. But it's on us to give back. And for me, you know, I look at that and say, you know, how can I, you know, quite selfishly, like, I want to find talent. I want to know who's out there that's good. But I also look to my network and say, you know, I have friends at a bunch of different agencies. I have friends that have been at agencies and are now client side. If I meet a smart kid and I can't help them out, maybe one of my friends can.
Yeah.
And again, it's really just about being conscious about how you can help other people out and give back. But one person I will kind of shout out to is Scott Galloway, who ran a really, you know, big consultancy called L2. Or I say big, it was probably, you know, 50, 100 people, whatever, but had a really outsized impact, you know, getting, you know, hundreds of thousands of views. He's now got a podcast with Kara Swisher on Recode. And now he's launching another venture called Section 4. This guy engages with his audience. He talks one-on-one, very real to them. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, if you wanted to reach out, you know, it's actually him, because he'll tweet back something real at you. So if you guys, you know, I know you guys do that, but I think just if my advice to, like, how do you guys scale, it's it's the same thing we heard in a fraternity. You're gonna get out what you put in. Just keep putting in and investing in those relationships, because it doesn't matter, my former clients, doesn't matter if they, like, I worked with them for 2 weeks, a month, a year. All these people that I had, real connections with and maintained them are the ones that are messaging me saying, hey, I know you're doing this thing, talk to this person or whatever. Some of it's unprompted or unsolicited. But these people want to help me now because, we're more than just colleagues or acquaintances or whatever. We're friends.
Mm-hmm.
There's always,
does that answer it?
There's always when we do these podcasts, and we generally do wing it. Like, we have an idea of what you do and how it's going to go, but there's always usually, I find, one or two things that no matter what the person is doing, they seem to know more about, or it's their thing. It's like one of their things on how they got ahead. Obviously yours is an insight into the marketing world and networking. And I think networking it's like one of the most talked about, but also one of the least talked about things.
I would agree with that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everyone says, yeah, it's all about network, and then everyone will nod their head, and then we'll all go our own way and not fucking network.
Yeah, and no one will actually give as much insight. And that's the thing I really like about your personality and what you're doing, and what you base your whole sort of professional life off of, is that you're so invested. I mean, you can see you have a passion for, advertising and learning and, sort of the whole market in general, but you're also just as focused on giving back, whether it's like through these seminars that you were talking about at Rotman, or just, opening the doors for people to come in and speak with you, because that's, you see just as much importance in that.
Well, a lot of people are like him. Most successful people will help.
Yeah.
The more successful they are, obviously, probably the more you have to show that you're a valuable person to help, because they won't give their time to just anybody. I think what gets in our way, and it gets in a lot of people's way, is they see a lot of the people that do reach out and network are like the guy that send you that real estate message. Mm-hmm. And they're afraid that they're going to get lumped in with that guy, and that I don't want to be associated with someone who creates that effect for the people they reach out to. So you go too far in the cool direction, like, no, we'll just figure it out. We'll just figure it out over here, when there's somebody out there that not only could help us advance a lot quicker, would be happy to. Mm-hmm. And it's just like it's easy for them. It's just as like it's easy for you to help. You already have the knowledge. You're giving maybe a 30-minute speech. You're like, you know what? It's not that hard. It's not like you had to go read a textbook to do it. You're just giving your experience to people, and it's providing a lot more value to them than the amount of time it took you to give it to them. And it's just because you've lived it. You're a bit older. You've gone through it, and I think it's like everyone talks about this, and everyone listening right now is probably agreeing with what I'm saying, but yet we'll still not start to network. So I always and I always loop back to this on the podcast. Here's an answer. Here's a key. Let's highlight it. Mm-hmm. Networking is a key, and there's a bunch of other keys we've highlighted. And then I always ask the question, okay, like, why don't people? Why don't we do it?
It's a comfort zone thing.
It's always it always goes back to comfort zone. It always goes back to mentality and what you believe in, getting in your own way.
Like not everyone is cut out to be the CEO of a business or an entrepreneur or any of these things, right? And I think those are really aspirational goals. If you have them, that's amazing. I think, for myself, like, this is me putting my money where my mouth is. I'm very fortunate that, if shit goes sideways, like my family's a backstop. I can take those risks. Like, I'm not coming here saying it's, 100% me and, this is on my own grit, but it is to some extent, like, what do you want to put into it? Like, if a lot of people like talking about entrepreneurship or hustle and hustle porn, but they have zero.
That's a good term.
Zero idea of like what it actually takes. Like, like, it sucks when like you can't make payroll and pay yourself and pay someone who came on because like a client hasn't paid an invoice, and that's shit I had to deal with, and that doesn't make me feel good. Like, there's no substitute for like the hard work and determination. But like the people around you, like, if you got to take it on yourself. Like there's always going to be opportunity to point a finger and say, this is why something didn't happen. And we can always look at it at our own success and say, oh, that was all me, without looking at it and saying it was the market or I just got lucky or things like that. So I think like as much as you can stay humble, as much as you can look at the people around you and say, not what can I like get out of them? Like that's obviously something that's going to happen from your network, but what can you give back? That mentality goes, you know, way further than, you know, I'm gonna cold call 300 people. Like fuck that. Like if I spent, I would still be on that 300 people list and get nowhere.
And
As she's making a list over there of people to cold call.
And I think the important takeaway from that is that when you ask yourself that question, it makes you value what you have to offer in terms of the engagement.
Right.
And another point that sort of this always pops up in my head, but I always think of that one guy at that what was that conference Eli brought us to?
Gary V.
It was some sort of Gary V chat, right?
Gary V's jokes. I like Gary V.
But anyways,
Kinda.
there was this kid there that has his podcast, and I think he emailed him every week for like a year, or emailed his assistant until he finally came on his show, and now this kid is getting like people that he wants on his show because he's he's
You
had
got
a
Gary
high
V,
profile.
and now he's getting all these big name celebs. And it's not to say not to say that cold calling won't work for some type of sales, but when you're talking about personal,
Right.
like making a connection, getting a mentor, you're not going to cold call a mentor. And I think with this kid, even though it seems like a cold call, he's emailing Gary week after week after week. Behind that email must have been value. It must have been, hey, I'm a young kid with a podcast. I love you. All I want to do is talk to you every week, please. Like I just want to be a successful podcaster, entrepreneur. There was some value there.
Right.
I don't know what was in his emails, but it couldn't have just been, hey.
Look, if we take you guys as the example, I'd start with, you know, what is your vision? What do you want to achieve? And you start using that as your back, like you build out from there, right? You know, like if you guys know where you want to be long term, it's, you know, your course is going to go through, you know, all these different things, but as long as you're moving forward, as long as you're, you know, kind of moving in one direction, you know, that's where the real value is. If you just sit there and you never execute on your ideas, you don't take the chance, like you're never going to get far. So like I would challenge you guys, and I'd be happy to do this pro bono for you boys.
We'd love that.
Yeah. But you know, like I'm seeing, like, as we're kind of joking about this, like what's going on in the back that they can't see, like I see sticky notes up there that are just, you know, like prod someone, whoever's reading them at the end, like, oh, do I need to do this? Like, have we achieved this goal? Like, you know,
what he's describing right now is Kristen is working in the corner. She's compiling a list of contacts for her eco consulting company, and she's got her sticky notes on the wall of all her, what are they, to-dos?
No, this is like my social media plan.
Okay.
Her sticky notes are her social media planner.
All my like warm leads and
Oh, warm leads. Okay. So, yeah. Okay.
there are full leads.
But it's great. It's
yeah.
great. Like what you're starting to see is someone like take what's in their head and put it on paper, and that's half the battle. Like most people I know, like I love, like I joke with my mom. They have this vlog idea that she wants to do with my dad. Like they're getting to retirement age, and they want to write. They want to do a vlog of It's Better with Wine, and you know, just talk about like food and wine because it's shit they love. And it's like, honestly, if my mom just like writes it in a brief, like I'll throw that to like a producer or like one of my friends who has like a camera set up. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, if you just take that first step, someone will meet you halfway to like make an introduction or do something for you. And it doesn't matter like what industry you're in, if it's emerging one like esports, cannabis, whatever, like it doesn't matter like how saturated it is, if there's money in it for other people, like if you take that first step, people will want to help you out.
I was just thinking, this idea just popped into my head, how funny it would be if like at a retirement home that like there was people filming vlogs of like drama or like the goings on of,
You know how fun it would be? Not very.
not
I think it could be if you cut it right.
If you cut it right,
if you cut it right,
and
yeah.
they're actors, But if you like, yeah,
Shitty grandsons.
like you would legitimately need to put like an MTV style producer that like mix shit up. It was like Bethel, you have to fight with Angelica. You know what I mean?
Like Hills style
you would-
production.
you would really, and even then, like, yeah, the concept is there. I can see what you're saying, but I don't think with real people, there's too many consequences at that age. Like,
someone breaks a hip, they're dead.
yeah, death. They're like, okay, this actor is now dead, and like the family's crying, and there's no comedy in that.
Death cued us all. We were all like, there's serious consequences. Death.
Yeah. But no, this is great, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. But I think we really took the core nugget out of what maybe you had to offer with your story for at least helping people out coming up. And you made the comment about the 20-year-old thing. Dude, I'm 27. Like the whole thing about being in your 20s is more like a mindset than anything. It's just the foundational years. Yeah. And that's becoming later in life as things change. People have kids later, yada, yada, yada. But what I wanted to ask just before we wrap it up is there's one thing you guys wanted to talk about, and it was something to do with, you said something to do with weed?
Weed.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess
You're the one with the notes over there.
Yeah. The one question that we were saving was you made a comment to me before we started recording about how this morning, or actually, I don't know if it was this morning or whatever, whenever it was, that you had a coffee and you smoked a bowl before you went to the gym.
Yeah.
So how does that work? You're caffeinated, but you're also high at the gym working out. Like you forget your reps. Like break it all down.
That just might be me. I think there's look, I'm not going to advocate for being like those people that just like get high and roam around public and whatever.
But you're advocating for those people that get high.
Yeah. There's a certain threshold. Look, I think Canadians right now, and if you're in a state where cannabis is legal, we have a lot of different ways to consume cannabis, like soft gels, vapes, like obviously dry flower. So one of my routines, it's almost a ritual. Like Saturday mornings, I still wake up at around 9 if I'm not hungover, and I've actually stopped drinking as much. So that's more often than not. My sleep in's 9. I wake up, have a coffee, and have a few puffs on my vape, and start my day. That means, like being diligent about like reading something on the way to the gym, listening to a podcast, whatever that is. Scott Galloway talks about, everyone has a friend that's an investment banker. They work out 6 days a week. They, work at or volunteer at the SPCA, like whatever that thing is. Like assume you're not that person, but still strive to be that person that has balance and like is achieving those things. And I think it, going into the gym and grinding it out, like it's tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So going in with a blended cannabis that's mostly CBD but still gets you a little high, loosens up, like makes the pre and the post like a lot easier. And
I'll try anything once.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I'm down.
And the best thing is like we have so many choices right now. Like you hit up our friends
like strains.
Yeah. You go to Tokyo Smoke and you can get I think it's Ease. It's a mostly CBD. It's what I smoke mostly.
You could probably go in there and be like, yeah, what's the best for working out? And they'd be like, this guy right here.
But the problem is sometimes like someone will give you like a 15% like sativa or something, and you'll just be high as a kite. Like you need to have a balance, right? So I've been consuming cannabis for years now. I had a medical card before legalization, so I was able to like look at different formats, soft gels, things like that, and say, I can take a 2.5 milligram soft gel of THC and CBD and then have a coffee, be a little high, but like be functional and be able to like do work, be focused on the task.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
achieve
you had
something.
medical, was that one of those things where you legitimately had a medical thing, or you're like, I'm just going to get a medical card like they do in California?
It's glaucoma medication.
I'm not going to disclose that.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, glaucoma, bad back. Yeah. sleep apnea or something?
Well, no, like I do struggle like getting to sleep, and you like what I've noticed is, you know, a lot of people just say, oh, smoke a joint before bed and you'll sleep great. Like waking up in the morning, I'm foggy as hell, right?
Right.
Like you have to find what works for you, and for me, cannabis. Like if I'm going to consume anything that helps me get to bed, I'm going to consume it earlier on in the night. Like I go to bed late. I go to bed around midnight, like 1 a.m. if I'm not consuming. So if I do want to consume cannabis and fall asleep, it's got to be around like 9:30, 10, so that by midnight I'm tired and I'll have like a restful sleep, but not wake up cloudy.
Do you find it helps with work at all, or do you just save it for the weekends and evenings?
It depends.
Okay.
Like if it completely depends on what I'm trying to achieve. If I need to buckle down and just do research, or, you know, think about a problem, I think it's helpful. But if you need it, like there's no way I would try to lead a client workshop. Like I wouldn't lead a client workshop drunk. I wouldn't leave a client workshop high.
But I'd research things drunk.
Well,
okay. It's different.
I'm thinking about that now.
It's actually probably no. Drunk is different. You're forgetful, and you're there's no performance enhancing thing to drinking except for making love.
I disagree with like everything that's about to come out of your mouth, but continue.
That was pretty much it. Making love, and like basically just anything where you have inhibitions. Like, you know what I mean? Like yelling, standing up in front of a big crowd. Network events. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like speaking with people at a party or anything like that. But pretty much other than that, I don't think there's any cognitive. What you're disagreeing that you make love better drinking?
No, I would say like if anything, like everyone has a collective history of like poor sexual experiences while drinking.
Too drunk.
But I think
I'm too high too. I'm assuming too.
Anyone who's worked in advertising knows that like there's a threshold between working while having a few drinks, and it's between like 2 to 3 drinks where you'll come up with ideas, you'll start killing it, and then like you get into the sauce a little more, and then productivity. It's like those nights where you know you're buckling in for a late night, you go for a dinner with your creative partner or whatever, the team, and then like everyone's like flying high after 2 drinks and they've got it, and then someone busts out like the liquor that they have in the office, and then shit just goes downhill from there. There's like a threshold, right? Like there's always these thresholds of like too drunk, too high. Like you got to find your limit, play within it.
And I guess that's the nice thing about the whole weed legalization is that going in to purchase, any sort of weed or edible, it's more broken down for you as opposed to relying on your dealer where he's just like, I got some like sweet ass stuff. Yeah, we were going
to talk about this, right? You're going to say,
I got time if you guys got time.
Yeah, we were going to talk about whether you should buy legal weed or you still get it from your dealer.
Yeah. Robbie, you're making me nervous over there.
He's going to put the time counter up there.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and people are going to make their own decision. But if we look at, what legal cannabis is trying to achieve in Canada, and I guess more broadly, there's, I think the estimate is like the illegal weed market's $7 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And when you consider that most licensed producers in Canada can grow legal weed at less than $2 a gram or in or around that price, like we're talking like a lot of weed is being sold illegally. And that's, it's helping unsavory people. It's not really supporting, what I think we're trying to strive for. And yeah, I think the quality of the weed's good. It's not fantastic, but it's only going to get better if we support the legal industry.
So you're saying stop buying from your dealers, even if it's a little bit more convenient, like maybe he lives in your same apartment building or something.
Or your roommate.
And you have to say, hey, sorry, roomie, I'm buying legal.
Even though it may be free. And
okay, never turn down free weed.
That's ridiculous.
No, I like. What do you guys think? I don't know. I've been buying, medical weed and then legal weed for like the past little while. So
I don't. I honestly don't think I bought weed for 10, 12 years.
I've never purchased, or I haven't purchased any legal weed yet.
Interesting.
But
why not?
Not 10, 12, 8 years.
I don't
9,
speak,
6,
or sorry,
7.
I don't really smoke weed anymore. I mean, like I'll smoke it still, like when it's around, sometimes, occasionally, and certain
Oh,
occasions.
that's
But
not true. I bought a bunch of weed for my buddies one time before a trip, and they told me the dispensary to go to,
oh yeah,
A-
for
and-
the
and I had no idea what was going on.
Was it a legal dispensary? Or?
I don't know.
for the tournament. I remember last year, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they said what to do, and I've never bought weed before, like this. Like last time I smoked weed, bought weed was from a guy at university that lived in a residence, gave him cash, and so this was like a walk to the front door, no idea what's going on, like security counter, like totally new experience.
Was the weed like visible and they pulled it out of a jar?
It was like there was a security front door.
Okay.
You showed your ID to like a hole in the wall, and then they
Doesn't sound legit.
then they opened the door, and then you walked inside, and it was
Yeah.
like weed in jars.
Yeah. So that was probably an illegal dispensary.
And the thing is, they told me the stuff to say too, because I didn't know the
The
measurements.
code words.
They were like, I was like, yeah, I just need like fucking quarter pounder with cheese, or something, you know what I mean? But like, or a fifth or whatever.
yeah.
And they, yeah,
Actually, you know what? I lied. I have bought legal. Well, actually, it might have been, or it might not have been, a legal dispensary when I was in Whistler over the Christmas holidays. But anyways, there was just like a store pop up. The guy was.
if I was gonna do it again, I would get it something like that, right? And I don't know if that's legal. How do you know if it's legal or not?
Well, I think we've done like in Ontario, it's a bit of a shit show. I think they've closed most of the illegal dispensaries. But even if you line up at Tokyo Smoke, like you kind of feel like you're doing something naughty. Like you have to line up outside. And it's not just Tokyo Smoke, it's Honey Pot. It's what the fuck is it, like Canna Cabana, which is a ridiculous name, but like
it.
like you have to line up outside, you get ID'd, and like the entire process, it's like, guys, like we know how to buy liquor in this province or
Yeah.
in this country. Why are we treating cannabis as if it's this like crazy thing that we don't know? Like for decades, like everyone knows, like BC Butts, like great, Canadians smoke a lot of weed illegally, and we're treating it like, no, like you
This is
gotta-
brand new. We have to see how people handle the weed.
Yeah.
And everyone at that shop has smoked weed forever. You know what I mean? Like that, everyone in line, they're like, I don't
Yeah.
need to wait in line. My dealer lives in my building. I'm doing you a favor. You're not doing me any favors.
No, I think it's actually kind of, this is my jab at conservative governments. Like you're supposed to be pro business, like small government, all that stuff, and they've totally bungled retail and like regulations in this province. Like the fact that if I go visit my parents in Markham and I want to buy weed, that municipality has opted out of selling weed, like that's against my rights as a Canadian to have safe legal access to cannabis, full stop. Like that, like a municipality can tell me what products I can buy. Like
that's federally legal.
that's federally legal. That's an overreach by a municipal government.
Yeah.
Like 100%. But this was built into Bill C-45, and it didn't get corrected with the latest like kind of round of
Well,
regulations.
wasn't it a liberal federal government that brought that?
It was. They
yeah.
gave way too much power to provinces and municipalities in that legislation.
I didn't know about that.
Now you know.
Now you know. No,
Interesting.
we talk about it in a lot of episodes. I'm like, I want to be into weed. I just yeah. I don't know. I think I've become a bit of a control freak since university, and it goes against. I don't know. I have to figure out the psychology of it. I want to like it. I just every time I think about doing it, I go, I'd rather not. I don't know why.
I love it. To be
It's
honest, I don't really have a place for it in my sort of day to day. I don't know, as of late. So
yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll
Yeah.
become stoners. We'll work it out, man. I've
But a modern stoner.
modern stoner, like
Functional.
yeah, like I want to wear like cool circular glasses and a beret.
Well, it's like it's funny, right? Like, what's his name, Spicoli from like Fast Times at
Yeah,
Richmond,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Sean Penn. Like that is not like the average person that
No.
consumes cannabis, right? So once we move past that image, or
Yeah.
the Cheech and Chong, I
Break
think
the
Well, I
stigma.
never
Yeah, break
met
the
that
stigma.
person in my whole life.
I've seen one or two of them.
I have. At high school.
Oh,
for
really?
sure. Yeah.
My high school was not really like that.
I definitely had a couple characters in my life.
Like, but you don't know if
Similar.
it's the weed or if they're just like that and they smoke a lot of weed. I feel like if it wasn't weed, it'd be something else. Anyway, I think so. Your opinion on that is yeah, it might be inconvenient to buy legal, but buy legal because it's going to further that process along.
Yeah.
It's better than going to criminals. Why not?
Look, when the amount of vape pens that I've bought illegally is high, and the
No pun
variance,
intended.
yeah, but the variance in the product quality is huge, and there's no recourse. What you can do, ask like your drug dealer for a refund, especially like when you're buying these like from buymyweedonline.ca, like like that's an actual website you can look
Silk
it up.
Road.
Yeah,
Shout
well,
out
it's
Buy My
it's
Weed
on
Online.
it's on the ClearNet, like it's on like the internet that anyone could access on Google. So I sit there, I'm like, you have some of these companies or businesses that are like making a decent product, and these people might want to go the legal route. They haven't had that opportunity yet, again because of the regulation. But then you buy certain vape pens and they're dog shit. Like the product quality stuff, they're harsh. You don't know how they've been made, and they're not legal. So there's no recourse for you as a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm satisfied.
I'm great.
Yeah.
That was a cool episode. We recorded the tips for your 20s at the beginning,
Yes.
so I'm gonna splice it into here.
Right.
But basically, what's about to come up was something we recorded at the start of the conversation that happened organically, and it was pretty jokes.
It was kind of funny.
So we kept it going. But what we'll record now is just the outro
Yeah.
that we'll cut into after it. What I could do is I'm just gonna slap this in at the tips for the 20s at the end.
Yeah.
We can just talk about a hot take right now.
Dude, picking your nose, there could be hot takes on that for sure.
Picking your
Do
nose.
you pick your
Or
nose in
farting
public?
when you're dating, when to fart.
Oh, that's a hard
Oh.
one. That's a good one.
That's it.
That's it.
Low-key, I was there with my friend when farted. Just real quick. Farted with his girlfriend for the first time.
Wait, start again.
Okay. And actually listen, so this will be really funny. So him and his girlfriend, we were up at a cottage, and we're all unpacking in this like tiny little like cabin. It's like very rustic,
Yeah.
and he bends over to grab something, and he farts right in her vagina. And he had never farted before, and it was like the loudest, stinkiest fart I've ever heard. It was so funny, and he just like popped right back up, and she was just standing there, and he's like, "Well, fuck, that's the first time I've ever done that in front of you." And it was such a good first fart.
So should I beep out his name, or is that totally
No,
cool?
knows what he did.
I might still bleep that out, but also
Sorry, what was the name once more?
the thing about that is he probably had been holding it for a long time because he hadn't been farting in front of her. That's the only way you're bending over and one squeaking out like that. 3-hour card ride, right? He can't do it. I do that sometimes at the gym though.
You got to feel like that's building up though. Like 3-hour card ride, like if you've got a fart that's going to be loud, stinky, you got to feel that brewing.
You got to be aware of that. And the thing
I know,
is,
right? Like,
I would find a way to do it you know what I mean? I'd get out of the car and I'd meander somewhere.
I got two comments to make. One, at the gym, if you're gonna fart at the gym, do you like?
I don't
do
fart
you like
at the gym on purpose.
Do you like myself? You got to pull out one ear from your headphone to like
you're
monitor the
telling me-
loudness.
You're telling me you fart at the gym on purpose?
I'd be occasionally if it's,
You don't clinch, like you just like, you know what, I can like go the next 20 minutes or set, or like go to the
I'm in a public space. I shouldn't fart in here.
I'll just crop dust and then leave.
You fart at the gym too? Jesus, I live in a.
I'm not going to the gym to fart.
Okay.
I mean, I fart publicly, but I think
Yeah.
everyone does it.
in
Yeah.
the wind, in like an open mall where no one is, but at the gym, that's a bit. Anyway,
That's tough.
but the real question is, when is it appropriate to fart in front of your significant other? That's the hot take. And for a guy, I'm going to be honest, pretty soon into it.
You're 100% right. If you're not doing it really early on, you're just setting unrealistic expectations of the type of animal you are.
Totally.
Like, honestly, for a guy, like, the second you know she really likes you and you're no longer testing the waters, that's the day you let a big stink go. You know what I mean?
A big stink.
Or maybe it doesn't have to stink, but a big sound.
Something.
Something. The second you know, you're like, okay, this isn't just a test or relationship. Probably around 4 months.
Yeah.
I'd
4 to
say
6 months.
4 to 6 months. You're like, okay, we're dating. This is it. We're together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because that's also the time when you're going to start to be spending more time together. too. So it's like you can't be, clenching your cheeks.
What about like the
walking around.
physical rumble? Do you think that like if you're, watching Netflix on the couch and there's some, feeling to it, but it's silent, is that less appropriate, more appropriate?
I think the most offensive thing is always the smell. So doesn't matter the sound. But then for the girl, it depends what type of guy you're with. But I'm gonna be honest. I had an ex. I never heard her fart once. Ever. And not that I said this isn't allowed. I just really appreciated the effort she put into
not
not knowing.
I think that's something you got to bond over, though. Like that sets up a relationship, like at
That's
least in
why we didn't
some
make
sort
it?
of way. Like there's like comedic effect, right? Like you're in a fart. Like sorry, you're in a fight.
fart.
Yeah, you're in a fart. No, you're in a fight, and someone farts. Like that either makes the other person so mad, or just it's comedic and totally diffuses the situation.
I think for the first one, it can't be one of those ones where you're sitting on the couch together and there's like a rumble and you just decide that's the time I'm gonna like squeak one out. Plus you're sort of Dutch ovening like the blanket that may be over you or something. It's gotta be you're just like in the kitchen or whatever and you're like I don't know. You got to be separated enough, It's more of like a noise thing. And
I'm just gonna say it, like that entire relationship. At no point was I like, I really wish she farted. And I really enjoyed. That was one of the things where if you would ask me back, one of my fonder memories was how she kept that sacred. You know what I mean? Like, because for women, they're attractive, hairless, gorgeous, and they're so beautiful, and they're always scented well. And then once they let a rip go in front of me, that all collapses.
Yeah,
but not that I wouldn't put up with it.
That's
if you love the person.
That's only one way to view women.
Yeah,
it's very binary.
Kristen is holding up a sign right now.
Her
that
sign says, "I'm a lesbian. You're a lesbian." Why'd you write that on a sign?
Here we go.
Yeah. The good thing only 30 people watched the video that you held up your sign to the video. No, her sign says, "'Cause I'm sexist." Yeah.
You're just speaking your truth.
No, I'm just saying what my ex did, and I appreciated it. Not that if she didn't do it, I would break up with her.
Wait,
I appreciated it.
Wait, so you're telling me, reflecting on the relationship, the one thing that you, the one thing that you
How
wish
long were you guys together
she
for?
had done?
Oh, not very long. About 4 years.
You really you really missed in this relationship.
Yeah. Over the last 4 years, I'm glad we never shared farting in front of each other.
Well, I fart all the time. Because and it's not like I ever was like, you can't fart. She preferred to not, and I always remember liking that about her.
You kept her under strict no farting rule.
Well, the conversation never came up, but that's what I'm saying. Once you on the girl side, on the guy side, you fart when you know she likes you. On the girl side, you fart when you know he loves you.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that at all. Like I would feel, I'm still self-conscious farting in front of like buddies.
No.
Kind of, yeah. I think it's,
it depends on your relationship with buddies too. I mean, like there's a time and a place. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the fence about it.
Yeah, Robbie, you've almost murdered me sometimes, I feel like.
What? For because I farted or because
yeah, the farts. I don't know. You had a rough period there where your bowels weren't working properly. You're out of it now. But there was a rough time there where I will never forget it.
When we're in LA?
When we're in LA specifically. And the only reason I remembered it so vividly is because we ate the same food every day, morning till night. And somehow it just went so wrong.
You know what? There's something about, I think, Robbie and I's shared experience of like going to a summer camp together where there was some guys who were really proud for like a week of not taking a poo on trip. And, they'd be like bunged up, and then you'd go at the end of the trip, $10, you go to McDonald's, and then it's like, all right, like evacuate your bowels because like that's just not going to sit in your body. And that bus smelled awful every time.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like 14, 15-year-old boys who haven't showered in a week, and then after a McDonald's trip, and like 2 of them haven't pooped all week. First of all, I don't know how you do it, and I don't know why it was always 2, but there was always 2 guys in a cabin of 8 who wouldn't poop, and it was weird.
Because the counselors and LITs would like feed you fucking minuscule portions. You barely eat the whole trip.
Yeah. If someone forgot a food bag, that'd be awful.
So, okay, we didn't give any. I'm the only one here giving definitive tips, and then Kristen's over in the corner calling me a sexist, which I don't appreciate. We just need some definitive answers. I think you're safe as a guy when she likes you because it's a lot more socially acceptable and masculine. Typically, not in this new, whatever you want to whip it up over there in Kristen's world. For the girl, it's just a little bit different, just not a lot.
It's a little bit different.
I think it's funnier if the girl, like, if I'm in a relationship and she farts in front of me first, like, that's kind of her setting like the boundary and tone, and I kind of like it. I like it when it's like, no, like, this is funny, this is like what it is, and she sets that up versus like everything being on me to determine if it's like legit or not.
Maybe it's never happened to me.
Yeah, you know what? I can't really. I don't know. I've never had that happen to me. So my feelings towards it would say I'm siding with Trav.
But only experience based. You know what I mean?
Experience based, yeah.
And I'm gonna say it didn't go wrong. It wasn't a negative in the relationship. You know what I mean? So, but I know many people that maybe would think opposite because they've had that experience. But in terms of my advice, we're talking about safety zones. If you're if you're a gassy person, you got to get that out of the way early, and you got to be like, "This is who I am." So for that, maybe that goes for both guys and girls, and maybe my ex just wasn't a gassy person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that could be it.
Good theory.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, safety. You want to be safe. You can't. No fart could break up love.
Are people? Are
I
there
mean?
people that are less gassy?
100%, 1,000,000,000% for sure.
Totally, man. Depends on your diet.
Yeah.
So I guess she was a pretty clean eater, eh?
Yeah, you know what? I kind of feel weird talking about her in this manner all the time, but yeah, let's
spend
just
10 minutes talking about your ex-girlfriend farting.
Let's just. I'm saying safe zones. To give it a definitive rule for in your 20s, when you're dating people, you want to make sure that it's all good. I think for a guy, you're good once she likes you. 100%. For a girl, you're good once he loves you. No fart could break up love, And then anything before that, it's a gamble.
That's a t-shirt.
But it could go either way. You could fart, and then if you get a boyfriend like yourself, and you're like, that's hilarious, I like you even more.
Yeah.
Or, maybe it goes the other way, but it's a gamble. You're rolling the dice. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever heard of a case of a fart breaking up a relationship?
I'd love to Google it. I wish Kev was here.
There's got to be like it happened on like a wedding day or something.
Like,
or just like in the ceremony silent. Or just like through like both families hated each other during, like afterwards. Something like that.
I'd love to Google that. Too bad our in-house producer isn't he in the house? Isn't he upstairs?
Yeah.
Oh, we just forgot to ask him to. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
We gave him the day off.
We gave him the day off. Yeah, I didn't realize it was his day off. Okay, but I think that wraps it up. Safety zone, like and love, and then it's a gamble zone before that. Yeah. Could go either way, really good or really bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that
depends
sums
who
up
you are
that
as a
hot
person.
tip for your 20s.
How comfortable you're feeling.
But it's funny because we Tarantino'd this. We actually recorded this tips for your 20 at the beginning of the podcast. You're now listening to it at the end of the podcast. That's why if you're watching the video, we have no beer in our cups. And now we're just going to go ahead and loop back. We're going to cut it right here. We're going to loop back to being the podcast, and then you'll just hear the outro from here on out.
Here, I got the audio marker.
So I guess what we'll start with is there any last plugs for Elemental, or is there any final advice that you want to give our listeners?
Nope. If you've watched this podcast all the way through, you don't need to hear my voice anymore.
That was a power move. I like that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
And we'll see you next
Tuesday.
I'm a bad, bad man. Don't you understand? I'm a bad, bad man. Best you turn and red. Whoa, all my life I've been kicked around. Nobody breaks me, they can't keep me down. I'm a bad, bad I'm a bad